A man was severely wounded and knocked unconscious on the battlefield. When he awoke, he found himself in a crypt. Seeing the eerie and terrifying scene before him, he quickly scrambled out. However, when he crossed through the woods and reached a road, he realized that everything around him was strangely unfamiliar. The never-before-seen paved roads and the roaring cars filled his heart with confusion. The man's name is Ichabod Crane. He was a captain under George Washington during the war. Along with Ichabod, a headless horseman woke up riding a white horse as if he was looking for something. Before long, a horse farm was attacked by an unidentified creature, prompting Abby and Corbin to rush to the scene upon receiving the report. They split up. Corbin went to inspect the stable, while Abby sought out the owner to inquire about the situation. However, while Abby was looking around, she was suddenly confronted by a headless corpse, prompting her to urgently report the scene to Corbin. But by this time, Corbin had encountered trouble as well. The headless horseman slowly emerged from a corner. Seeing a headless figure for the first time, Corbin was also taken aback. But when he saw that the headless horseman was armed with a battle axe, Corbin quickly pulled the trigger, only to find that the bullets did no damage. When Abby heard the gunfire and came running, she arrived just in time to see Corbin's head being chopped off. Before she could recover from the shock, the headless horseman burst through the doors and charged out, leaving Abby to only watch helplessly as he escaped. Meanwhile, the oddly dressed Ichabod was also taken into custody. Officer Andy, believing him to be the murderer, called Abby over. However, after one look at Ichabod, Abby immediately refuted Andy's suspicion, because the headless horseman Abby saw was a soldier. Not only was he wearing an old red uniform, but he also had a brand on his hand that looked like a bow and arrow. Hearing Abby's description, Ichabod, who was in the cell, displayed an incredulous expression because he had been the one to behead the headless horseman. Seeing his apparent knowledge of the murderer's origins, the officers conducted a deep interrogation of Ichabod. Ichabod told the people that he was a captain under George Washington. He had fallen into a coma after fighting headless horsemen on the battlefield, and when he woke up again, he was in a tomb. What exactly happened in between, he did not know. The officer informed him that it was now the 21st century, 250 years since the war he described. After much questioning, the lie detector showed no reactions, indicating that Ichabod was not lying. Yet, people still refused to believe that Ichabod came from 250 years in the past. The sheriff planned to send Ichabod to a mental hospital, but Abby felt there was more to the case than it seemed, especially since she had witnessed Corbin being beheaded. Ordinary people simply do not possess such strength. Abby, keeping it from her superiors, secretly took Ichabod out of the police station, and they went to the crypt where Ichabod had awoken. After some searching, Ichabod found a Bible buried in the dirt. The book told the story of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, known to the world as the Grim Reapers, each marked with the brand of a crossbow. Ichabod felt the appearance of this book was no coincidence, suggesting something ominous with the resurrection of the headless horseman.
I beheaded him. That man didn't die, because he was never a man at all. He is death itself, Lieutenant. And somehow, he has returned to Sleepy Hollow to finish what he started.
On the other side, the priest panicked and closed the door of the church. Just as he was about to leave, a piercing neigh suddenly sounded from behind, and the headless horseman, wielding his battle axe, appeared. The priest, seemingly knowing his purpose, immediately tried to control him with telekinesis, but mere iron chains could not stop the steps of the headless horseman, and soon the priest was cornered.
I'll never tell you where it is. I'm prepared to die.
To understand why he had slept for so long, Ichabod, together with Abby, began an investigation. Abby had also experienced strange events before. Once, while playing in the forest with her sister, 4 white trees suddenly appeared behind them, alongside a creature that resembled a human. Although she hadn't seen the creature's face clearly, Abby always felt it was a terrifying demon. The appearance of the headless horseman only confirmed her suspicions, prompting her to decide to help Ichabod uncover the truth. One day, while Ichabod was sleeping, a crow appeared at his window. Following the direction in which the crow flew, Ichabod saw his wife, Katrina, trapped in a forest. Katrina revealed to Ichabod that she was a witch. The head of the headless horseman was buried under a tombstone in the church, guarded by the priest all these years. Now that the headless horseman had found this place, she urged Ichabod to prevent him from retrieving his head. It turned out that when Ichabod had injured the headless horseman, their blood had mingled, thus intertwining their fates. to prevent the Headless Horseman from being resurrected. Katrina had cast a spell on both of them. She had thrown the coffin containing the Headless Horseman into the sea, while Ichabod was buried in that cave. Their recent awakenings were due to someone controlling the Headless Horseman, and Katrina had been trapped here by the same person. Just as Katrina finished speaking, 4 white trees appeared behind them.
If the horseman reclaims his skull, he'll become whole again. 3 more will follow, and then it will begin.
What will begin?
The end. The answers are in Washington's Bible. You must stop the horseman from retrieving his skull. Remember, light is his weakness. He can't survive the sunrise. Wake up!
When Ichabod awoke, he found himself pinned to the bed, with a doctor preparing to inject him with a sedative. Fortunately, Abby arrived in time to stop the doctor, using her police authority to forcibly remove Ichabod. On the road, Ichabod shared all the information he had received with Abby and mentioned that the Headless Horseman's head was in the church cemetery. To prevent any mishaps, Abby called Andy, instructing him to bring a team of officers to the church immediately. But as soon as they hung up, the Headless Horseman appeared before Andy. By this time, Ichabod and Abby had already arrived at the tombstone. Following Katrina's directions, Ichabod indeed dug up a jar from beneath the tombstone. Upon unwrapping it, they found a white skull inside. It was the very head that the Headless Horseman had been searching for. As they were struck with shock, the Headless Horseman arrived on his warhorse and started shooting wildly at them. Just as the Headless Horseman was about to finish off Ichabod, who was hiding in a pit, Abby timely fired her gun, forcing him to stagger back repeatedly. Ichabod took this opportunity to knock the Headless Horseman's weapon away with a shovel. Just then, Andy arrived by car, but he knocked Abby unconscious. Unaware of this, Ichabod continued to struggle with the Headless Horseman, but no matter how he attacked, he couldn't injure him. Having no choice, Ichabod prepared to take the skull and flee, when suddenly an axe flew past, nearly hitting him. Ichabod, clutching the skull, took cover behind a car, continuously calling out Abby's name. As the Headless Horseman was about to catch up to him, the backup officers also arrived. Seeing the headless body before them, they were unsure of how to proceed. Just then, a ray of sunlight slowly rose from the sky, and white smoke began to emit from the Headless Horseman. He raised his machine gun and started spraying the police cars with bullets. When the 2 policemen were too scared to look up, Headless Horseman rode away on his warhorse. Because as the Grim Reaper, he couldn't walk in the sunlight. Back at the police station, Andy was arrested, but as he sat in the cell awaiting interrogation, a creature suddenly appeared behind him. Seeing the creature, Andy was about to plead for mercy when it slapped his neck, breaking it instantly. When Ichabod and Abby arrived, they saw the creature preparing to leave through a mirror. Curious, Abby stepped forward to check, but in the next second, Andy miraculously came back to life in the evening after a mysterious creature had snapped his neck with a slap. When he saw himself in the mirror, an endless horror surged within him. At that moment, a ram-headed demon approached, chanted a spell to mend Andy's neck, and then commanded him to revive a witch. Accompanied by a bout of retching, Andy pulled a necklace out of his mouth. Following the demon's instructions, he arrived at an altar. As soon as the necklace touched the central stone pillar, a fierce fire ignited instantly. Shortly after, a witch with charred skin emerged from the flames. Andy immediately relayed the message the demon had instructed him to deliver. Then, Andy was driving the police car when he stopped a man. After confirming the man's identity, Andy uttered some strange words and left the scene. The man sat in his car, utterly bewildered, but just as he was about to start the car, a cacophony erupted from the radio, and a witch appeared before him. The next morning, Abby and Ichabod rushed to the scene upon receiving the news. Ichabod closely examined the charred corpse, noticing that the man's heart appeared to have been extracted. Such a scene reminded Ichabod of his days on the battlefield. Back then, they did not believe in ghosts or spirits, but one night, under a blood moon, soldiers in the camp were suddenly reduced to ashes. He had sensed a powerful evil spirit lurking in the surrounding woods at that time. It seemed that this spirit had reappeared. To determine the identity of the evil spirit, Abby and Ichabod sneaked into the police station's archive room. In a secretly sealed safe, they discovered a book detailing the entire history of Sleepy Hollow. According to the descriptions in the book, the current evil spirit was a witch who had been sealed away hundreds of years ago. At that time, there were 2 factions. The benevolent witches formed the Sisterhood of the Radiant Heart, while the evil ones were known as the Hellish Harpies. The 2 sides had been enemies for years. In the end, the the leader of the benevolent witches used white magic to strip the evil witches of their harpy powers. They used the most brutal method of burning at the stake to punish those witches. But before their execution, the evil witches cast a curse. Every time a blood moon rose, their ancestors' ashes would serve their own purposes, and at that time, she would return to life. Abby and Ichabod suspected that all this was the work of Cerilda, because the deceased was a descendant of the judge from those times. Now that Cerilda has obtained the ashes of that person, she must be preparing for a resurrection ritual in some hidden corner. Ichabod thought of the church's basement, as his wife had told him in a dream that it was a place where a witch's bones were sealed. At that moment, Andy was frantically digging up the ground there, and soon, he pulled out a sack containing Cerilda's bones. Cerilda neatly arranged her bones on the ground, chanting spells while sprinkling the obtained ashes. After completing these rituals, Cerilda lay down on the bones. When Ichabod and Abby arrived, they just saw Cerilda's body beginning to regenerate. Seeing that bullets could not harm Cerilda, Ichabod quickly led Abby to retreat. On their way, Ichabod discovered a stash of explosives. They lured Cerilda step by step to this location. Before leaving, Ichabod opened a box of explosives. As Cerilda approached the explosives, Ichabod immediately threw his torch at them. Unexpectedly, the torch ceased burning upon hitting the ground. They couldn't help but curse under their breath. But the next second, the torch reignited. This is the Sandman that countless people are most afraid of. Whenever the night comes, the Sandman will sneak into the dreams of those sinners and use white sand to close their eyes so that they can die in endless remorse. On this day, a female doctor stood on the roof of a building and tried to commit suicide. But before she jumped, she specified that she wanted to talk to Abby. When Abby got the message and came over, Vega said some strange things to her and said she should trust her sisters. As Vega turned her head, Abby noticed her eyes had turned white.
Deserve it. I've had this coming a long time.
Vega's words left Abby deeply confused. Her sister, Jenny, had been locked in a mental hospital for many years, and it was puzzling why Vega would mention her just before dying. To unravel this mystery, Abby, accompanied by Ichabod, went to the psychiatric hospital, but Jenny was unwilling to meet with them. But Jenny called Ichabod into the room alone, and Jenny told Ichabod that she was locked up because of her sister's cowardice. It turns out that after seeing the demon in the woods, they fainted from fear, and when they woke up again, 4 days had passed. The first to discover them was a ranch owner who also saw the demon. However, Garrett chose not to speak out and instead called the police to take the sisters away. During the interrogation, Jenny revealed everything, but Abby claimed she saw nothing. Jenny pleaded with her to tell the truth, but Abby persistently denied seeing anything, leading to Jenny being deemed insane and institutionalized. Over the years, Jenny could not forgive Abby, which is why she refused to meet her. Jenny told Ichabod that Vega also knew the truth but chose not to reveal it. Upon learning all this, Ichabod immediately found Abby. After confirming that everything Jenny said was true, Ichabod instantly thought of Garrett, who had seen the demon. After all, Garrett had never spoken the truth about it over the years. When Abby brought Ichabod to Garrett's house, they discovered that Garrett had already been blinded by the Sandman. Abby desperately tried to persuade Garrett to put down the gun, but Garrett responded, "You can't help me, and you're his next target." Now that people who knew the truth were dying one after another, Abby was also worried about her own life. So they went to the archives to investigate the Sandman. According to the records, the Sandman originated from the 18th century Mohawk tribe, characterized by their hollow eyes and white skin. Hearing this, Ichabod recalled a Mohawk ally who had once told him stories about the Sandman. To prevent being controlled in their sleep, their tribe used a symbol to resist the Sandman. Realizing the gravity of their situation, Abby knew they had to find a descendant of the Mohawk tribe. After a series of investigations, they finally located a Mohawk, Seamus. However, when Seamus heard they were seeking help because of the Sandman, he immediately turned them away. Ichabod quickly mentioned the Sandman's habits, saying, "If you do not treat your neighbor kindly, the spirit of Rocaronte will come for you." If Seamus doesn't help Abby today, then the Sandman will definitely appear in his dreams. Reluctantly, Seamus agreed to help them and took Abby and Ichabod to a small cabin. To eliminate the Sandman, they had to fight him in their dreams, but dying in the dream meant dying in reality. To quickly enter the dream state, they drank a cup of green potion. Seamus tied Abby and Ichabod to the beds, then brought out 2 scorpions with deadly venom, which would allow them to control their bodies in the dream, as a sharp pain emanated from their abdomens. Abby and Ichabod instantly entered the dream world. Ichabod kept shouting Abby's name, but at that moment, Abby encountered the Sandman. Before Abby could react, the Sandman blinded her with the sand from his body. At that moment, Abby also saw scenes from the past. The Sandman kept asking her if she saw the monster, but she was too frightened to reveal the truth. Seeing her sister diagnosed as mentally ill because of this, Abby felt immense guilt. Just as the Sandman reached out his finger to control Abby, Ichabod arrived just in time to stop him, but this was the Sandman's domain, and with a mere gesture, he seized Ichabod by the throat with an invisible force. The Sandman slowly approached Ichabod, and with a wave of his hand, Ichabod's arm turned to sand and scattered on the ground, just as the Sandman was about to finish Ichabod off.
Coward, and I betrayed my sister. I turned my back on her when she needed me, and I will not do it again. It's my fault. You can come at me all you want. I'm not afraid anymore.
Abby woke up and admitted her mistake. With that, they successfully defeated the Sandman. After the incident, Abby decided to have a serious talk with Jenny, but when she arrived at the mental hospital, she found that her sister had already escaped through the ceiling.